Sherlock Holmes once said, "Once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth." And that is well worth remembering if your greyhound develops a limp. Join me now to find out why. In any breed of dog, it is totally reasonable to assume that a limp could be due to arthritis, it could be joint pain, it could be dysplasia, or even cancer. And these are all things that your vet might consider if you make an appointment because your dog is lame. They might want to do scans to investigate, and they might prescribe long-term medication to help the condition. However, sometimes none of these is the cause. And I know this. I'm not sure if this is a good way to change. Sometimes none of these is the cause, and I know this because I've met the people that it's happened to. I came across one poor distraught couple whose dog had been diagnosed with bone cancer without any tests being done. And I've met others whose dogs have been diagnosed with arthritis based on the dog limping and been put on anti-inflammatories, which had no effect whatsoever. In each case, there was another simpler cause, a simpler answer, and that could have been explored with a very, very quick and easy visual physical check. The dogs had corns. And of course, it could have been one of those other ailments, and it's important for the vet to explore those options. But it does make sense to me that they rule out the option of corns first before scaring the owners with a diagnosis of bone cancer based on no investigation. And sadly, this is quite a depressingly common story. And it happens because not all vets are aware that corns are even a possible cause of lameness. I've had people come to see me who've had a dog who's lame and they've come to have their nails clipped, and the vet hasn't even looked at the dog's feet. They've just given them anti-inflammatories or sent them to have an MRI or an X-ray. And all they needed to do was look at their toes and they would see the corn straight away. So yes, there could be something else going on in addition to the corn, and it's possible that those two things could be linked because corns can link in with other things, as we will see later. But if you don't look at their feet, you're not going to know that there are corns in the first place. So I'm guessing that if you're here at all, it's because you're interested in learning more about greyhounds. So if you enjoy our content, please use the like button, and that will mean that YouTube will show you more of our videos in the future. And why not subscribe so you get to know about our new content straight away. So we're here to talk about sighthounds, and our subject today is corns, and corns are peculiar to the sighthound breeds. They appear as a mass of hard tissue called keratin, often circular in shape, which usually forms on the pad of the toe. And that circular shape is one of the giveaways that you're dealing with a corn. It's generally a mechanical problem, pressure on the bones inside the toe, press down on the paw pad and cause the hard skin to form. And that's no different to how you might get hard skin forming in a place where your shoes rub your toes if you wear shoes that are not well fitted for you. And greyhounds do typically have thinner pads than other breeds. Some have really soft areas. Floppy, for example, has two really thin patches of skin on the middle two toes of his front feet, and on one of those hard skin has been building up, and I've been having to look into what might be going on here. It could be he's developing a corn, it could be something has gone in to the toe, he's got a prickle or a splinter or even a piece of glass has gone in there, so that's something we're looking at. But typically what you will see is a small hard flat area, perhaps the size of a lentil. Injuries such as treading on a piece of glass or a prickle can lead to corns, and the hard skin forms around the wound as it heals. These type of corns tend to be narrower and deeper, and I saw this happen in my second greyhound, Jojo. He trod on a thorn during a walk, and I saw it happen. I had to pull the thorn out of his toe, so I know exactly where it happened. And later on, he developed hard skin where that injury was, a long, deep, pointy bit of skin that went into his toe. So the corn was always very narrow, but it was really deep. And we never really managed to get to the bottom of that to deal with it. But he developed a corn exactly on the site of that injury. It was thought for a long time that the papillomavirus that causes warts might be linked to the formation of corns, but that idea has now been discounted. But it's believed that Greyhounds are prone to corns because of their low body fat combined with their thin skin. So they just don't have the protection between themselves and hard surfaces that other breeds might have. There just isn't enough padding there to protect them from walking on concrete, pavements, rocks, etc. When you're wondering whether your dog might be limping because of a corn, there are some clues to look for, real giveaway clues that what you are looking at is a corn rather than another cause of lameness. And these are worth checking for before you go to the vet. So the first of these is that the lameness, let's fly. The first of these is that the lameness is apparent when they're walking on a hard or a rough surface, but it goes away when they walk on something soft, such as on your carpet or on grass. And the soft surface acts as padding, so the corn doesn't hurt as much. There isn't as much pleasantness or discomfort from the pressure of the corn. If you suspect that your dog might have a corn because they are limping, then there are some clues to look out for that will give you a good indication that what you're dealing with is a corn rather than some other cause of lameness. The first of these is that the lameness is apparent when they're walking on a hard or a rough surface, and that lameness then goes away when they're walking on carpet or grass. So the soft surface acts as padding, and it means the corn is not as painful to them when they're on that soft surface. Another clue is that you've been to the vet. The vet has said it's arthritis and they've given you anti-inflammatories, often minoxidil, metacam, whatever version of it they have, and they make no difference whatsoever. So the anti-inflammatory is prescribed to address the pain, but it does not help with pain from corn. So if they've been given an anti-inflammatory and there is no improvement to the pain from the corn, then from the foot, there is a good chance that you're dealing with a corn. What you'll also find, the other clue, is when you inspect their feet, is that one pad looks different. The corn might appear as a circular area that is harder, it's a different colour, perhaps paler, and the whole pad might seem rounder, it might seem a bit plumper. And if you run your nail over the surface of the pad, the bit that they walk on, you can feel it doesn't have the same give to it as the others, so it will physically feel different. You may also find your dog pulls away if you do that, because the pad will be tender, so do it carefully and gently if you are going to do that. It can be much easier to see a corn if the pad is wet, as the hard skin absorbs moisture differently to the rest of the pad. It might be possible to make it more visible by rubbing a little bit of toothpaste or hand cream into the pad, but I've never myself had a great deal of success with the toothpaste method of making them stand out. I find hand cream is better, or just making them wet, either by soaking them or looking at them after the dog's been walking somewhere wet. So that is also a way to visualize the corn. Where are they more likely to occur then? We already mentioned that they can form around the site of a little injury, such as a prickle or a splinter that the dog has encountered on a walk. But predominantly they occur because of mechanical causes or just because of the dog's anatomy. And then they are typically found on the middle two toes of the front feet, because these are the toes that take most weight. So it could just be an unfortunate combination of very thin pads, hard surfaces to walk on, and poor construction of the dog when they were built. It can also be linked to an abnormality in the foot. This could be a previous injury, such as a broken toe or a missing toe, or they could have a poor structure of the toe in the first place. If the foot is imbalanced in some way, it's going to shift weight to a different place on that one toe or to a different toe altogether. And this can mean that the corn forms in the place that's having to cope with extra weight, just in the same way that you get pressure points in the place where your shoe rubs, and that might form a blister, or it might over time, instead of forming blisters, you get hard skin, i.e. just hard skin, or leading to corns themselves. So it is partly down to the shape of their feet and partly how they were made. You're dribbling on me now. Oh, thank you. That's really delightful. Thank you. This is they're stealing my treats. Hello, Jim. So while...
Hello, my name is Meg Bain, and apologies for the break in transmission, but Gandalf's only gone and nicked all the ruddy treats, and we don't think that's on. So Jimmy's going to give him what for while we share them out.
So while corns are most commonly found on the middle two toes of the front feet, if the body weight is not carried evenly by the dog when they walk and stand, then they can occur anywhere because they will occur to wherever the weight has been shifted to. And this can be for a number of reasons. It might be that their gait is affected by issues such as arthritis or muscle imbalance, so they favour one leg and try to shift weight away from the leg that hurts. Perhaps they have a hip or a knee pain and they don't want to put as much weight onto that hind leg, and therefore they'll get corns on the other back leg or perhaps the diagonally opposite front leg. They might have an old injury to the foot, such as a damaged or missing toe that we mentioned. My very beautiful first Jim Bob, he came to me with a toe that had been amputated, and he ended up forming a corn right up between the toes in the space where the toe was missing from. And that was really, really difficult. I did end up having that one surgically removed, but it just came back. That's not that common to find them inside the toes, but a foot that's had a toe missing is quite likely to develop a corn at some point because the other toes are having to take extra weight. Another problem is that greyhounds often have flat feet. If you look at a number of different greyhounds, perhaps you go on a sight hound walk and you see lots of different dogs there, look at their feet. Some have very upright feet where the toes point down at the floor. Maggie's a good example of this. Jim's a good example of this. And others have what is sometimes called hare feet, H-A-R-E, the animal, not H-A-I-R like this, where the foot is flatter. And that can be because racing has stretched the tendons, a vet said to me, flattening the foot, but they can just be naturally built that way in the same way that some humans have naturally flatter feet or higher arches. And if they have flatter feet, the weight is usually shifted backwards, and that can cause pressure to create corns in places because it's taking weight where it isn't meant to take weight. Linked to this is the possibility that the nails are too long, and the two kind of go hand in hand. So if the nails are too long, it will shift the body weight backwards. And if the body weight is shifted backwards, the nails won't wear down. So they become too long. So it's almost like a vicious circle. The longer the nails get, the more the weight is carried backwards, the more the nails can grow because they don't press into the ground, and it just reinforces. I personally do think that even if the nails are not actively touching the floor and pressing on the floor, it's wise to keep them well trimmed. So do look at my video on nail trimming if you want to have a look into taking more care of your dog's nails. The long nails and flat feet do tend to go hand in hand, or paw in paw in this case. So do corns always make the dog lame? I have had dogs where they have corns. I've found corns, but they're not lame. And the visible bit that you see of the corn, the bit that you can notice on the surface, that little really quite tiny bit of skin often, is just literally the tip of the iceberg. There is probably a lot more inside the pad, and this is why it can hurt when there's little to see on the surface, because there's much more inside the toe itself. And if you squeeze the toe gently, then they may flinch because there's discomfort because of what's grown inside, but it's not yet visible on the outside. Depending on where the corns are and how many toes have a corn on them, then they may or may not limp. If you think about it, it makes sense, because if only one foot is affected, they're not going to want to put weight on that foot. So they will clearly limp by shifting weight away from the foot that hurts. However, if they've got more than one foot with corns on, they may not have feet to shift weight onto that don't hurt. And what you'll get then is a dog that either hobbles or walks just a bit unevenly, maybe sometimes hops, doesn't want to walk as fast. Maybe they stumble because they tread on, say, a little stone and it catches the corn. And so they don't have the classic signs of a limp where they are holding one foot up all the time, or they're always shifting weight away from one particular foot, because all of the feet hurt or several of the feet hurt. And then you will see them just wanting to walk more slowly, hobbling as if they are in discomfort. And I think that makes identifying a corn even harder if you go to the vet, because it's not obvious that it's one particular foot. Have a look as well for behavior changes. It might be things like they just want to walk more slowly, or all of a sudden they don't want to jump out of the car. That might not be because they don't want their outing to end. It might be because landing on the paw with the corn is going to be painful when they jump out. So do think about things like that as well. My helpers have all left me in the lurch now. They've all gone out to enjoy the sunshine.
Gandalf the wise, without knowing glance, he ran through the fields in a playful dance. Loyal and clever, the heart so true, chased in dreams with the sky so blue. The sage in the park, he's got tales to unfold, whispers of adventures of a brave girl. With a wag in his nail and a stride oh so bright, he raced past the hedges of Hillside in the sun.
Now Floppy is a case in point here. We've been having trouble with one of his feet. He's clearly tender on that foot. He limps on that foot, and he sometimes will hold it up, even just in the yard, which is concrete. And I do think actually that might be part of the problem. He's been doing too much running up and down, barking at non-existent things. It's pretty clear that one foot is the problem, because he holds it up and he doesn't want to stand on it. The issue could be higher up. It isn't necessarily in the foot. It could be in his leg. It could be in his wrist. It could be in his shoulder, or even up to his neck. But it is obviously in that one area. On the other hand, Meggie, she started off with a corn on her back foot that was obvious, because she'd be walking along and suddenly she's hopping, holding that back leg up. And then more recently, she stopped limping. She stopped the hopping. And I thought, this is a bit strange. What's gone on here? And it wasn't that the corn on that back foot had gone away. It was that she's developing one on a front foot as well. So now, as she wants to avoid putting pressure on those 2 feet, she's got to stand on just 2 legs. And that's not something she does very well, particularly because the 2 legs are on the same side of the body. So she'd be hopping along just on one side if she was going to hop. And what she does now is she just wobbles a little bit as she walks, because she has 2 painful feet on the same side. So those are examples of different ways that changes you might see with the corn can come about. Now, a big question, of course, is what can we do about it? And we're going to look at options for what we can do about it in 2 separate videos. In part 2, I'm going to have a look at things you can do at home to support them. And in part 3, I'm going to have a look at what your vet can do to support them. And even if you go to the vet in the first instance, which is potentially worthwhile because it's possible there's a foreign body in that toe, or it's possible that it isn't a corn and you want to explore those. So I'm not saying don't go to the vet, but if the diagnosis is a corn, then it may be you decide you want to look after that corn and manage it yourself, which, as I say, we'll look at in part 2. If the corn is resulting from mechanical pressure just because the way their skeleton has been constructed, or because they're missing a toe or something, then the chances are you're not going to make that corn go away altogether. You should be able to make them more comfortable, but it is going to keep coming back. So it is about ongoing management. If it's something like a prickle or a splinter has gone in, and it might be that the vet can do surgery to remove the foreign object from inside the toe, and then it will all heal up and the problem will completely go away. There's also the risk of an infection with a foreign body. And that, of course, is going to make it very sore. And one of my dogs, once she got a splinter that went in the side, it didn't end up forming a corn, but it swelled up over the course of about an hour while I was out. And I came home and took one look at it and thought, oh my gosh, we're going to the emergency vet. And got there, she walked in and it burst and there was blood and pus all over the floor, which was a solution because I had looked at it very, very carefully earlier in the day and not been able to see the site of an injury on this swollen toe. And obviously it was at the side rather than coming in from the bottom. So that didn't end up with a corn, but it's a good example of why you might need to see the vet anyway to rule out some sort of foreign body and the risk of an infection in there. Once these things have been clarified, then you have your options for long-term management at home or trying to do something with the vet to deal with it there. If you've enjoyed this video, then please do hit the like button, and why not subscribe while you're at it so you'll get notified of parts 2 and 3 when they come out, where we're looking at ways of managing and treating corns. In the meantime, do let us know in the comments if you've had a greyhound with corns, or if you have a greyhound with corns now, and what your go-to approach is for supporting them with that corn. And also do let us know if your vet has told you there's something wrong with the dog that isn't a corn when in fact it was a corn. So that's all from us today. Floppy made the briefest of visitations, even though there haven't been any bees. It's a bit blustery here, so I don't think it's really bee weather, but he's not taking any chances, unfortunately. But hopefully the rest of the gang have kept you entertained. We'll be back again soon with another video for you, so we'll see you then. Bye for now.